And here is the reality, acutely aware that there could be relatives and loved ones listening. The United Kingdom lost 457 military personnel and civilians in the conflict in Afghanistan. 616 people returned with injuries, some of which are life-threatening injuries. And I'm sure many people will be the first to say there are some probably still carrying injuries who have yet to be properly looked after or even realised because of PTSD and other conditions. That is the reality. And someone will know those figures all too well is former Conservative MP who served as Defence Secretary, Armed Forces Minister, also Leader of the House of Commons, and also can wear yet another hat, and former member of the Royal Naval Reserve. I speak of Penny now, Dame Penny Mordaunt. Much to discuss here, Dame Penny. If I can just start with someone who, as you have served and you've been in the military yourself, your reaction to when you first heard that assertion by the President. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick, and thank you for the opportunity to restate the facts. And I don't think the President would expect or respect anything else from us. You've just given the numbers. We know that NATO Article 5 has only ever been triggered to support the US, which led to that NATO-led action in Afghanistan. But behind those numbers, Nick, are individual stories of heroism. Just to give you a few examples, I could talk to you about Para Pete McKinley, who performed amazing heroic actions to retrieve US wounded soldiers. 16 Air Assault Brigade did an amazing job evacuating US citizens from Kabul. The SAS and the SBS did incredible things to save US hostages. The RAF, the Army Air Corps and the Royal Marines performed, again, putting their lives in danger, incredible actions to rescue and retrieve US personnel. And to be very unpartisan about that, I could invite the President to read the citation for the military cross that our current Armed Forces Minister has for his service in Afghanistan, Al Khan's. It is of course not true what the President has said, and you're right to point to how the next of kin might be feeling this morning, having listened to that. And at times like this, I think we just have to remember and focus with the US on our common threats and our common interests, and ignore this kind of chat from the President.
You served in high positions, Dame Penny. You were Defence Secretary, you were International Development Secretary not that long ago. If you found yourself across a table from President Trump and his team, how would you handle that?
Well, I think Mark Rutte did exactly the right thing. I don't think the President respects fawning. I think that, and I'm someone that has supported the President in what he has said on NATO with regard to spending. I think he is right to push us on that. I've supported him and understand his frustration. But it is quite wrong to say what he has said about our armed forces. And I don't think that he would respect a nation that remains silent in the wake of that.
Couple of other things to unpack with you, if I can, Dame Penny. President Zelensky saying Europe has failed to, quote, take the lead in defending freedom. How fair is that in Zelensky's view, in your view, what Zelensky says?
Well, I feel for Zelensky. It is incredibly frustrating, and there is practically much more that Europe collectively could have done to create the conditions for this war to end. And for various reasons, we have chosen not to do that. I think even when we have decided to do things, we have faffed around for a long time before doing them. And that's both on sanctions, but it's also on giving Ukraine arms. To our credit, we have been a nation that has been pushing to do more. But we really are now getting into a situation where, I mean, they're facing a very, very difficult winter. We have to bring this conflict to an end, and you can only do that by ramping up the pressure, particularly on the financial side with Russia, and giving them an opportunity to bring this to an end. So I feel for Zelensky. I have sympathy with the President of the United States when he says we're not doing enough. Britain still isn't spending what it told the President we would on NATO. Our chiefs have given us 4 years to rearm. The money doesn't start flowing from Treasury until year 5. That's no good at all. And unless we actually start to look like we've got a credible deterrent, that NATO is bolstered, we are going to be facing the same situations and worse from Russia in future years. And that's the reality of this situation.
And Dame Penny, lastly, in a sentence, if you can, the establishment of the so-called Board of Peace, in your view, does that move the world closer to resolutions in places such as Ukraine and elsewhere? Make no difference whatsoever. Your assessment of the Board of Peace, Penny?
Well, we will have to wait and see what practical good is going to come out of it. I mean, the president this week has said it's not a replacement for the UN. It will work with the UN. But I welcome the focus in trying to get very difficult problems that have been around for a long time resolved. The president can do some good, but I would hope we will see some consistency, and I hope also that he will appreciate not just the military bases he has across Europe, but also the skill and the courage of our service personnel who will be there for America.
Grateful for your time. Thank you. Dame Penny Mordaunt. Now, Mr. Bramer is a former US Navy intelligence officer, founder and chairman of the political consultancy group, the Bramer Group. Thank you for coming on. Mr. Bramer, does it embarrass you that your commander-in-chief got his numbers wrong? Good morning.
Good morning. First, I'm glad to hear Dame Penny. I love her in the middle of her book right now. But
I should have kept you on. You could have told us. Sorry, Don.
I was sitting here for a minute. I almost got giddy. So wow. So hard act to follow. I think a lot of times, and I can't speak for the president, but I can always say that I think that when he speaks, that when he goes off cuff, he goes in from president mode into sales mode, and that's not always the best mode for the president. But his tactics, he continually uses the public and the press almost as he had a cat toy for a cat that he'll throw it and they follow. And while you're following the toy, he does something completely different. And I also can, not just in this comment, but in other comments the president makes, I believe when he speaks to the EU, he does it with exception and does not include the UK in his statements, because that's he kind of doesn't include the UK in his statements about the EU.
I mean, I hear what you say. He's rarely on the cuff. He's always off the cuff. But is that the way to perform in the importance of the office that he holds, Don?
Well, whether it's the right way or the wrong way, it has seemingly worked. I mean, even Mark Russo, just a day ago, on one hand, says how much he's glad the president has put the pressure on NATO, because we've gone from 3 countries that were meeting their obligations to more than 20 now. But if you look at that, even that number, consistently, the UK has been the only country that has been consistent above its agreement. There was another, 17, 18 out there who just sat back and let the rest of the world do their work for them.
Well, yeah, but if you look, there were Danish troops, there were British troops, there were the Dutch. That does need to be acknowledged, Don.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Not saying the troops weren't around, but if you look consistently across the board, and we'll look at Afghanistan, we can even look at Iraq, where I did multiple tours. I can say, yes, you saw other troops from other countries, but standing side by side with the United States was always the UK.
All right. Enjoy Penny's book. Don Bramer, thank you. You're chairman of the political consultancy company, the Bramer Group. You're a former US Navy intelligence officer. Your reactions, particularly if you have my sympathies go with you, or you knew anyone who didn't come back or who came back with significant injuries.